The sermon series "Longing for Christmas" is we put it in the middle of a series we're already doing. We're in the Gospel of John, but I put that off, put it on hold until January. We will come back to it because this idea of longing for Christmas is something that God laid on my heart through my daughter, by the way. My daughter up in Michigan, her and her family live in Michigan, and she, going into the fall, had this big idea. You know what? Wouldn't it be great to recapture a moment at Grandma's house again? And she's speaking about my wife's parents, and they're so all up in Michigan. And she put out the announcement to her cousins and to her siblings and to her aunts and uncles, hey, wouldn't it be great if we all just did one more great big Christmas at Grandma's house? And which, at Grandma's and Grandpa's is a little confusing because now I'm Grandma and Grandpa. She should be down here. But anyway, no bitterness there. And she put out this call, and she didn't get the response she had hoped for. Her siblings are not able to join her up in Michigan. Some of her cousins are not going to be able to join her. Some of her aunts and uncles are not going to be able to join her. And suddenly, I could see this disappointment. So in talking with her, what is it you're looking to recapture? And believe it or not, when I asked her, do you remember any of the presents that Grandma gave you through the years? She really didn't remember any gifts. It was never about the gifts. It was about family being together there and just wanting to recapture that. There's this longing in her life for that family moment, that family with all the noise, with all the chaos, with all the activity that goes with it. It's just something she's been longing for. And it was in that moment that God started speaking to me that, there's some areas that I think many of us, including myself this year, are going to be longing for, and it has to do with our current situation in our country. It has to do with our lives. It has to do with our family makeups. With everything going on inside of all of that, you're probably experiencing some longings too. And it's going to really be magnified during this month. So what does God do with it? Did you know that most Christmas movies, if not all of them, have weaved into the story a longing? That's how all these stories get started. Your favorite Christmas movies have longings inside of them. In the movie The Grinch and also in the movie Rudolph, they are longing to be included. In the movie The Misfit Toys, they're longing to be valued by someone. In the movie Christmas Story, he's longing for the perfect gift, a Red Ryder BB gun. In the movie Elf, he's longing for a relationship with his father. In the movie Christmas Vacation, Griswold is longing for his Christmas bonus. And Charlie Brown Christmas, he is longing for the meaning of God. What is the real meaning of all of this? In the Christmas movie Die Hard, he's just longing to blow things up. But in the movie Home Alone, after all that time alone, after all that time of thinking he was doing pretty well, as Christmas gets closer, he suddenly discovers he's longing for family. Some of you this Christmas can identify with that. With everything I love about Christmas, and I do, there's some things I don't like about Christmas. I hate the fact that for a lot of our people, it will be a time of sadness. It will be a time of loneliness. I hate the idea that for a lot of our people, there will be an empty seat at the table this year. I hate the idea when we're right in the midst of longing for family, we have to endure those commercials that have the perfect family Christmas going on, and we know that's not going to be ours. If that feels like some things that you're experiencing this year, if there's anyone in the room, you're looking more forward to December 26th than you are the 25th, then do I have a story for you. Luke chapter 2. Mary was engaged to Joseph and traveled with him to Bethlehem. She was soon going to have a baby, and while there, she gave birth to her firstborn son. She wrapped him in cloths, laid him on a bed of hay, because there was no room for them in the inn. I would just about bet anything that Mary experienced a deep longing for family. If anybody would have understand that feeling, it had to be her. She was a long way from home. Mary was pregnant and with a new husband, but the baby wasn't his, and they both knew that. She had told a strange tale trying to explain the pregnancy, but her conservative parents probably separated themselves from her. Most women back then would have had their moms close by to deliver the baby. Most women back then would have had the joy of the newborn shared with her sisters. Most women back then would have had her father holding the new infant and bestowing on it a blessing. Most women back then would have had more comfort than a barn for the delivery or straw for the bed. Most women back then would not have had to use a feeding trough for a bassinet. Mary was a long way from home. Mary was a long way from family. And I bet she experienced that longing. I asked Madison Lionheart to join us today. Madison is, her and her husband, Jonathan, are new here to Lincoln Christian Church. He's employed out at Lincoln Christian University where he's a professor. He studied at Cambridge, and that's this photograph right here of the family. But Madison also has a master's degree in theology, but she comes up today to join me with a personal story of longing for family. Would you give Madison a warm welcome?
So it was 3 years ago today. I was 32 weeks pregnant with twin boys, and I was miserable. You see, we had tried for years to get pregnant, tried some fertility treatments, they didn't pan out. So we decided to put having a family on the back burner and move all the way overseas to England for my husband to do his PhD. Well, a few months into the PhD, surprise! Not only am I pregnant, but I'm pregnant with 2 babies. Well, it was a difficult pregnancy. I was sick night and day and night, the entire pregnancy. And I had some other complications that led to bed rest at 25 weeks. And so I waddled into my 32-week ultrasound at the hospital, and I wouldn't actually leave the hospital pregnant again. They immediately admitted me, and 3 days later, on December 8th, 2018, my sweet baby boys were born. They were 8 weeks early, so their little lungs weren't prepared to breathe on their own yet, so they were immediately intubated and put on a ventilator. They were only 3.5 pounds, so we started a 4-week journey in the neonatal intensive care unit, waiting on their little bodies to grow and to learn how to breathe and to eat and to regulate their temperature on their own. And it was hard. We spent Christmas in the hospital. We spent New Year's in the hospital that year. And we were longing to see our baby boys healthy and at home. We were longing for the kind of first Christmas we had always imagined as a family. We were longing for our parents to be there, to hug us, to hold our hands as we navigated the ups and downs of the NICU, to help us to navigate what does it even mean to be parents now, to teach us the proper way to hold a bottle or to swaddle our babies, to be there to help us when we brought them home from the hospital. They were an ocean away. They had booked tickets to come, but nobody was expecting the babies to come 2 months early. And in the midst of that longing, we found our needs met in an unexpected way. Our church community came around us and supported us as a church family. They showed up at the hospital with cookies and food and sat with us as we talked and shared our fears and our worries, and they held our hands as we cried because things weren't like we had hoped they would be when our boys arrived. They brought boxes of clothes and toys that we hadn't yet obtained for our sweet little boys, and when we brought them home, they were there to help cook meals and to hold them so we could take a shower and to clean and to support us. And what was even more interesting was it wasn't just the church members we knew. People we had actually never met before showed up and supported us as well. And it wasn't a very Hallmark Christmas. There wasn't snow or candy canes or magic filling the air. But it was probably the most Christ-like Christmas I've experienced. There was new birth and life. There was service and love. And there was family. Because in the midst of our longing for family, we were surrounded by the family of God.
Madison, Bonnie and I, we share a lot in common with you. And just like you, when Bonnie was carrying our twins boys, I required a lot of bed rest also. So, you ever question God's timing? You ever question how God chooses to do things? Throughout Scripture, many of the Bible characters have. You're not alone to question God about that. In fact, two questions that come out, how can this be, are right around pregnancy stories. Mary would ask, how can this be since I'm a virgin? But, a long time before her, another couple had asked that question. Abraham and Sarah were promised a son. But that was 9 chapters ago, the promise came, and there still was no son in their life. And suddenly there's an angel, and hey, by the way, it's going to happen now. And Abraham, he says, I'm 100, my wife is 90. How can this be? A 100-year-old man, a 90-year-old woman having a child. See, there's still hope for many of you in this room. How can this be? Why would God choose to work this way? And in their story, Abraham and Sarah, the baby feels way too late. In Mary's story, the baby feels way too early. And we start questioning, God, how are you going to work in all of this? And yet the point is, God is at work. And He does not stop working. Right in the middle of Mary's chaos, right in the middle of her confusion, right in the middle of her struggles, right in the middle of being a long way from home and separated from family, catch this, Jesus showed up. And I find at Christmases that are not the Christmas I dreamed of, there's that opportunity for Jesus to show up, for the family that is much bigger than I ever imagined. You see, I've been adopted into a family. It's the family of God. All through Scripture, the Bible has all kinds of family terms. It just keeps reminding us of how much God wanted a big family also. God is God the Father. Jesus is the Son. 148 times through the New Testament, we're called brothers and sisters. We're called the family of God. God also has this longing in His life for a great big family, and you and I meet that need for Him. But guess what? Each of us meet that need for one another as well, too. I love the fact that we're family when we come in here. This is more than just a community of faith and more than just a community, a church community. It is one great, big, large family. 1 John chapter 3, see what great love the Father has lavished on us, that we should be called children of God, and that is what you are. Galatians 4, because you are His children, God sent the Spirit of His Son into our hearts, the Spirit who cries out, Abba, Father. That means Daddy, Father. So you are no longer a slave, but God's child. And since you are His child, God has made you also an heir. Oh my goodness, the inheritance that comes along to those who are connected to the family of God. And then John chapter 1. But to all who did receive Him, who believed in His name, He gave them the right to become children of God, who were born, now catch this, not of blood, nor of the will of flesh, nor of the will of man, but you were born of God. Through God, even though God created each and every one of us, we're alienated from Him until we have a connection to Jesus Christ. Once we have that connection to Jesus, God planned a path home to Him. It just comes through Jesus Christ. I don't know if while we've been talking this morning, if all of a sudden you're saying, man, there's some longings going on this Christmas that I'm not feeling filled just yet. The opportunity for God to work the most is all around you. Jesus showing up and the family of God coming together. When you see our Christmas tree at our house, it just drips of family. Let me just tell you right up front. I love the way Bonnie decorates our Christmas tree. It's not elaborate. It's not particularly elegant. It doesn't look like the store's trees. It's just modest. It's beautiful at the same time. Simple white lights, and I like simple white lights. There's no tinsel. There's no oversized bulbs. I like that. Bonnie started a collection of snowmen and snow women a long time ago, so the tree has that weaved in through it. But if you look a little closer at our Christmas tree, you see family everywhere. There are those homemade items of our children as they were growing up. There's gifts that were given to us by very, very close family members. There's baby's first ornament. There's all these connections to family. And then this year, the picture up there at the top, my grandson, who's 5 years old, Ben, when he came in and saw the Christmas tree was up right at first and there wasn't any decorations on it, he started decorating the tree with toys and things. And then somehow he went and created, I'm saying he created, a empty toilet paper roll, put some Christmas stickers on that, and slid that on the tree. And just in case you don't know where it's at, it's right there in the lower part. See it? While Bonnie was decorating the tree, I walked over there and I said, do you want me to take this off? And she said, don't you dare touch that. That's a new tradition now at our house to have that toilet paper roll there. But Christmas isn't quite the way I envisioned it was going to be this year. I wanted to talk about a longing for family with you because I'm experiencing that. There's 4 areas that we're going to talk about through this month that have really strummed my heart's strings. This first week, just this longing for family. Somehow, somewhere along the way, after last year's Christmas, I assumed this year was going to be a big family Christmas for us. We didn't have it last year, so in my mind, I was anticipating that all our children and our grandkids would be at our house. And that's not going to happen that way this year, which was a little surprise, a little disappointing. Samantha's big desire to stay in Michigan and have that Christmas with Grandma won't bring her home. My daughter Stephanie and her commitment to her in-laws this year won't bring her around our house much. My 2 sons are staying out in Colorado and not coming home. And I looked at Bonnie the other day and I said, well, I guess Christmas Day is just you and me. And she said, I'm going to Michigan. So I was like, wow. And I'm not telling you this so you feel sorry for me Christmas Day, and I do not want to be invited to your house. It's okay to bring food to my house. That's all right, but don't feel like you need to invite me to your place. I really don't want that. No, the truth is, I'm going to be okay. Christmas Day, I'll be all right. Because of you, mostly. See, in my longing, I suddenly realized that Christmas Eve, I'm here for 3 services with you all. And the community comes out in great big functions, and I enjoy seeing the community here, but it's usually your Merry Christmas and your smiles and your hugs that I I carry the most with me. The day after Christmas, Christmas is on Saturday, so the day after is Sunday morning, and we're going to be gathered here again, and I'm going to wrap up this series that day. And so I'm excited to be with you Sunday morning after Christmas. And so all of a sudden it hit me that the community of God is all around me. I'm not alone. And I'm not alone with Jesus Christ being near either. This Christmas, if you're experiencing a longing for family and you're not plugged into a church somewhere, I'm just going to tell you right out, we would love to have you here. This family would be thrilled to have you join us. And we just love to have that. You are designed for community. This whole COVID thing has stolen that from us. And that community need is often met in a church. And so we invite you to make Lincoln Christian Church your family church. Yeah, with all that was going on in Mary's chaos, Jesus showed up. And I think he's going to show up this year in our family's longings as well. Father in heaven, I pray for our people in a special way today that you would meet that longing, that Jesus would be real. But Father, thank you for family. Thank you not only for the family we have here on earth, but for the family we have in heaven. And oh my goodness, we're heirs with Jesus. What the inheritance waiting for us. Oh my goodness. Father, thank you. Thank you for adopting me in. Thank you for calling me a son. Thank you for calling us daughters. And thank you for having a longing for family that only you could meet.